So if this is going to be your first season growing garlic, then I'm so excited to have you with us today because it's one of my absolute favorite crops. And today I'm going to walk you through step by step each key moment throughout the season to ensure that you have an amazingly successful first season here. Hey folks, I'm Jordan from Mind and Soil, where we're looking to introduce 1 million individuals to gardening's mental health benefits. So if one of the reasons why you garden is because of how peaceful it is, how restorative you find it, then go ahead and subscribe and come and grow with us. So I want to dive straight into our overview on garlic today, taking it from seed all the way through to harvest. And the very first thing that we need to think about before even getting anything into the ground is what location in the garden are we going to dedicate for our garlic. And so what I want you to do is I want you to take a look at this picture here where I planted my garlic a few seasons ago. And believe it or not, I decided to plant it in that area that was full of shade. Reason behind that was because I just moved to my house here in Squamish and I didn't realize that that was going to be such a shady area, but it definitely did not result in the best garlic being grown. So when you think through your plan for the season ahead, make sure that you're dedicating a space in your garden that is one of the sunniest areas of your garden. Right alongside your peppers, your tomatoes, etc. That is where we'd want to have our garlic growing in as much sun as possible. So now that we know where in the garden the garlic is going to go, we need to think through which variety we want to be getting into the ground. And this is an important one of the different plants that we grow because there's two distinct varieties or families of garlic. One is the hardneck variety, and then the other one are what are called softneck varieties. And the key difference between the two of these, which is really the only thing that you need to worry about, is that your softneck varieties, those grow in warmer climates. So if you're in kind of like zone 8, 9, 10 and above, then softneck is definitely worth trying out. If you're in a cooler climate, kind of zone 7 and below, maybe even zone 8 and below, then you'd want to go with a hardneck variety because it's going to perform much better in those harsher, cooler, freezing conditions that you're going to be experiencing over the course of the winter there. For myself, located just outside of Vancouver, I grow 100% hardneck varieties. However, the kind of golden rule here is to always be experimenting, playing around. If you're really curious in trying out some of the soft neck varieties and you're living in a colder area, or if you want to try some of the harder neck varieties and you're living in a warmer area, then go ahead and do it. Dedicate maybe 25% of your garlic space to that second variety so that you can see how it does in your area. That's ultimately going to make you a better and better gardener. You might also be wondering why this garlic is half of a head. That's because this is one that is a soft neck, which meant that I bought it from the store and have been using it in some meals and only now realized this morning that I only had half a head of it left. So there you have it. Okay, so we've determined the location in the garden where our garlic babies are going to be growing, and we've determined which variety it is that we want to be growing. The next piece we need to figure out is when do we plant it? And so planting garlic, it is one of our crops, of very few, that is going to be overwintered. And so what that means is that we plant it in the fall, we allow it to go dormant through the really cold freezing months over the course of the winter, and then it starts to grow as the temperature rises as we lead into spring, before then harvesting in July. So when exactly you want to be planting it in the fall, that really varies. A lot of people, they like to do it kind of 3 to 4 weeks before the ground starts to freeze. However, there's definitely a little bit of a window there, so don't worry too much or be too stressed about whether you do it at the beginning of October or the end of October. Just make sure that they get into the ground in the fall. And there is an old folklore or tale about when to be planting garlic, and rumor has it that back in the day they would always plant garlic on the October full moon. So this year I'm going to be trying planting all of my garlic on October 20th, which is the full moon. I encourage you to do it with me. Tag us on Instagram at Mind and Soil when you plant your garlic, and we'll be sure to reshare those on our Instagram account. Okay, so I want to fast forward a few weeks now to right before we're going to be planting our garlic. And what we need to be doing next is prepping our soil. And so what we're going to be doing for prepping our soil is adding 1 to 2 inches of compost. So garlic, they love a really kind of loose and airy, well-draining soil that's got lots and lots of nutrition in it. And so if you have not established any garden beds or containers and you're doing that for the very first time, go with 75% compost. 25% vermiculite. And if you want, you can check out our video where we grow in 100% compost, and it works incredibly well. So if you already have the garden bed established, then all that you need to do is add 1 to 2 inches of compost onto the top. And what this is doing is essentially rejuvenating this bed, because I've been growing in this bed all through the spring and into the summer, and now that we're into the fall, all the nutrients that were in there have been pulled out and utilized by the plants that were growing in there over the spring and summer. So adding that 1 to 2 inches of compost, it's giving me a little bit more volume, but more importantly, it's giving me all the nutrients and all the microbes that our plant babies are going to need to be growing big and strong. Okay, so we've got 1 to 2 inches of fresh compost into our bed. It's time to start getting our babies into the ground. And so what we're going to be doing is basically just pulling off one of the cloves from the head of garlic, and then we're going to be planting that with the pointy end facing up and the the flat side, which is where the roots are going to come out, facing down. And in terms of the plant spacing for our garlic babies and the depth that we want to be planting that, we want to be around 4 to 6 inches apart from one another. So I love to use my hori knife to just kind of plan out each 6 inches and then do them off center from one another. And then we're going to be digging down 4 inches to plant them nice and deep, so that when the top freezes down beneath the surface, our garlic is all good. It's going to have no problem coming 4 inches through the surface when we get into the springtime. So now that I've measured out each of those little holes and I've poked down 4 inches with my hori knife, before I put my garlic cloves into the ground, the critical piece that I do at this point in time is that I put about a half handful of worm castings into each one of those holes. And that gives this garlic clove such a beautiful little bump in nutrition and microbial life right around where it's going to be living and growing as it goes into the winter time and dormancy and then out into the spring. So this is really an important step, because we don't want to be giving it a big feed of nutrition right now, because we don't want it putting on any green growth before the fall frosts. But we do want to make sure it's got that really great environment with microbial life all around it, which is why we use the worm castings there. So once we have the worm castings in, we just pop each of our cloves in, again with the pointy side facing up, cover them, and those babies are going to now just hang out and begin going into dormancy. The last thing that we do before kind of ending the fall portion of planting garlic is I like to put kind of 2 to 3 inches of a leaf mulch on top. You could use other forms of mulches as well, but leaves are obviously coming off of the trees here in the fall, so they're free, readily available, and that adds a little bit of carbon and just organic material into the beds as well. So I'm a huge fan of adding on that mulch and letting them then just go to sleep and rest for the winter. So with the garlic in the ground and the mulch over top of it, everything is done for the fall portion of growing garlic. You get to now kick back, relax. You don't have to spend too much time in the rain or in the snow over the course of the winter. Just enjoy your winter knowing that your garlic babies are doing everything that they need to beneath the surface, and that you've given them such an amazing environment to grow big and strong as we get into the new year here. So speaking of, let's talk about what starts to happen as we get into late January, early February. And this is where in late January or early February, depending on where you live, the temperatures, the amount of sunlight that you get, you're going to notice your first shoots starting to come through the surface. If it's early February and you still haven't seen them, don't worry, don't stress. One thing that I can't help myself from doing as I get into late January and early February is move a little bit of the mulch aside and just dig down, peer down a little bit to see if any of those first stalks are coming through. You definitely could do this, but definitely don't disturb them too much. And over the course of kind of January and February, we're going to see all of those shoots come through the surface. And that marks the beginning of the now spring/summer portion of growing garlic. So the next key milestone or step in growing garlic happens right around March 1st. And what I like to do on March 1st, because all of the stalks have come through the surface, is I like to remove that leaf mulch that kept them nice and warm through those freezing months. And I like to apply our 4-4-4 superfood. So now, rather rather than just giving it worm castings like we did in the fall, we're giving it a really nice and big nutrient bump at this point in time. So it's now into those warmer weathers, it's starting to get some sun. We really want it to start putting on a lot of growth. So what I do is I grab our superfood and I take 1 to 2 tablespoons of it and I sprinkle that around the base of each plant, and I just gently massage it in, give it a good watering so it starts working its way down into the soil. And the last thing that I do at that point is that I take some compost that I have, so fresh compost now, and I apply 1 to 2 inches of that as essentially like an active mulch. So this is going to keep it warmer down below and beneath the surface, but it's also providing some of the nutrients and the microbes that are in that compost that are going to work their way down into the soil. So it's another way to get more nutrients and more microbes into the area that our garlic babies are going to be growing in. And so now that we've given it that first feeding of superfood and compost, it's got all the nutrients that it needs to really start putting on a lot of growth. And I repeat that top dressing of superfood at the beginning of May. So it gives you March and April to grow using the superfood that we gave at the beginning of March. And then I top that up with a little bit more at the beginning of May. So it has enough energy to make it into all of May, into June, and then at the beginning of July, when we start thinking through how to go about harvesting our garlic. And that leads us into the next portion of this. Okay, so with the feeding done and our plants are really looking big, lush, and beautiful because they've been treated so well over the course of the entire season, the next milestone that we're going to be looking for are our garlic scapes. And these are these kind of like spirally extensions that grow out of the top of the plant, and ultimately, if we left them on the plant, is where new garlic seeds would come out of. But that takes a lot of energy away from the head development of our garlic baby beneath the surface. So as you see all of the garlic scapes establishing on your plants, once again, that's going to be in probably mid to late June, potentially even early July, you're going to want to cut each and every one of those off. And that is going to, one, redirect all the energy down into the bulb so that it grows as large as possible in its final weeks of growth, and two, give you something really yummy to eat over the course of late June, early July. So grill up those garlic scapes, use them in stir fries, you could even make a pesto with them. And so with the garlic scapes now removed from the plant, we are at that point where we're starting to think through, when do I go about actually harvesting the garlic? And I know that for myself, this is like the most exciting day of the whole year, because who knows how good they're looking beneath the surface, how big each of the heads are. It's always so exciting to me. And so what we want to be looking for when it comes to harvesting our garlic and knowing it's the right time to harvest our garlic is 3 to 4 of the leaves on each garlic plant being dead. So when you go and you look at your garlic plants and you see there's 1, 2, 3, and 4 leaves that are dead, then perfect. It is time to now harvest that garlic baby. And to do so, you're going to use something like your hori-hori knife or a little bit of a shovel, and you want to stay fairly wide outside of where the stem goes into the ground. Dig down nice and deep, and then hold on to the stem to pop it out from underneath the surface. And it's going to take a little bit of force because these babies are, again, 4 inches down and have a really nice, beautiful, developed root system on them. But take a look at how big and how beautiful they are growing. And so we're going to go through the whole bed, harvest them all out, and now we've got this like big, beautiful amount of garlic heads that we've grown successfully and have now been harvested. Okay, so for storing your garlic, what we now have are all these beautiful garlic babies that we pulled out of the garden. And what's most important out of the gates here is that you do not rinse, do not wash, don't do anything with getting them wet or using water to clean them up in any way, shape, or form. The one thing that we're looking to do right now is to dry our garlic. So we don't want to use any water. Any dirt that is on them from when we harvested them, pulled them out of the surface, that's all just going to kind of flake off and fall off over the course of the coming weeks as it dries out. So all that you need to do is move your garlic to somewhere that's going to remain dry so that it can air dry. And so a lot of people, they'll hang their garlic up. Other folks, they'll leave it on something like chicken wire like this in the garage. Those are both totally great options for ultimately drying your garlic. And this process takes about 14 days. So for 14 days, just let it hang out, get nice and dry. And then after 14 days, what you're going to do is you're going to grab each of your garlic babies and you're going to chop off the neck on it. So from the head of the garlic plant, you're just going to go up about 2 inches and then cut the neck there, giving you what's now a really nice, tidy, clean looking garlic head. And then you can also remove all the roots at the bottom of the plant. And so all that you're going to be doing now at that point with your heads of garlic is just popping them into some form of a bag, such as your mined and soil burlap sack for your worm castings. And this serves as the perfect place to store your garlic as you now lead into the back half of summer and when you start to be using it in different dishes. Okay, so just before I share one final tip here, if you've gotten any kind of value or entertainment, or if you're feeling more comfortable and confident and excited to grow garlic this coming fall, then go ahead and give us a like, comment. That really helps us get in front of new gardeners who might not have yet experienced gardening's mental health benefits. So the last thing that you want to consider after you've harvested your garlic and you've stored it away is you might want to take some of the biggest heads of garlic, kind of put them away to the side to then use as your garlic cloves for the coming season. So that's then giving you kind of the largest heads with the biggest cloves and the genetics from each of those plants as what's now going to be put into the ground for your next season of harvesting. I know a couple of individuals who have done this and are having great success, and their crops keep getting better and better each and every season. So that's everything for today that I wanted to cover off on. I hope that this has helped you feel more comfortable, more confident, and excited about growing garlic this season. Go get those hands dirty, and I can't wait to catch you on the next one. See you then.